Hello, hello, and welcome to another edition of Maximum Growth Live. I'm one of your hosts, Jay Ruane, CEO of FirmFlex, your social media marketing agency for lawyers, as well as managing partner of Ruane Attorneys, a civil rights and criminal defense firm here in the great state, the Constitution State of Connecticut. With me, as always, my friend down there off the Delmarva Peninsula, my man Seth Price. Seth is the founder of Blue Shark Digital, your SEO for law firms, something we're going to talk about in this show, as well as managing partner of Price Binowitz, your DC, Maryland, Virginia, and South Carolina powerhouse criminal, family, and PI law firms. Don't want to forget the PI there. So, as usual, as we start off this show, I want to ask Seth, how you doing this week?
Stressful. The combination of COVID coming out of with the Great Resignation, it takes their strain. It's not ideal. Yeah. Sort of feeling some of those things pull.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the issues I wanted to talk to you about this week is that, we onboarded a new lawyer in March, and she's already decided to leave us, which is unfortunate because we've put in 6 months of training. We do bi-weekly training here, and some of our training sessions, go a full day. And so we've invested all that time and energy into getting her to where we would want her to be. And now she's going to be taking those talents down to the Maryland Public Defender's Office down in Montgomery County, down by you. So I have to make that introduction so that you guys can be friendly down there. And she's going to be a phenomenal lawyer. She certainly has the heart for it. But it's always difficult when you have somebody who you're bringing up and their vision doesn't match your vision because they decide to take an exit rather than stay on the highway with you. How are you dealing with sort of turnover in your office?
Well, look, let's separate the question. This issue kind of dovetails to what we talked about in a prior episode about hiring brand new attorneys, right? So you're in that danger zone, 6 months to a year. Money sounds like it's probably like mid-60s. There's promise of more, but hasn't kicked in. And frankly, in the criminal defense space, if I'm her, she's a rational player, and you get a good public defender service job, which this is as good as it gets, short of a DC, like, how could you not do it? Because she's never going to elevate at the same level.
Absolutely.
But with you, she'll be doing scut work, but there, she can get her malpractice out of the way, learn the tricks of the trade, be a felony lawyer in 3 years, and be worth 6 figures solid plus on the open market. Whereas with you, it might be a $5,000 raise a year without that same robust training.
Yeah, that's one of the challenges for, in private practice is that there is this specter of going to the public defender's office, which usually is decent money to start out. It's never great, but it's decent money. But the amount you get in sweat equity in building yourself up, that you're just the volume of cases and just your experience, you're playing basketball against the greats every day. And so, I can't give because people are hiring us for the top tier talent. We have to bring up our young lawyers into that, but the public defender clients are getting the young lawyers learning on their dime, and and I'm happy for her. She's definitely got a commitment to indigent defense, so it's a good move for her.
Yeah, right. But it's also it's the risk of taking on the junior person, but It's also some of the things, the truisms I've seen. So in DC, maybe unique to DC, if I get a recent college grad for like a non-lawyer position, and they've only worked on Capitol Hill, internships and fellowships and this and that, the moment they get a job, they're gone. So when you get somebody who's if they're really a high-powered person coming out of law school, and they want to do criminal defense, if they don't go to a prosecutor's office or public defender service, how are they going to get that jump into real training?
Right.
And again, there's exceptions to every rule. We might train somebody up, but for doing what you do and love, they have to make that leap. And it's a known fault in that system of bringing people up from first year. It might be that. It might be moving to a spouse somewhere else. It may be I want to get out of law. I don't want to be part of the rat race. Could be money. Could be all those things. But there are all those risk factors, as opposed to somebody who comes in 3 years. They like criminal. They're doing it. you're at a price point, the market is more mature, and you have a better understanding of where the person is, and the odds of them staying for over a year go up dramatically.
Yeah, and so that's why I'm thinking with this latest hire, looking to see what is out there on the market. A number of resumes have started to come across my desk, and one of them is somebody who's already done criminal work, hung a shingle March of 2020, and has been, sort of suffering the impact of COVID on solo practice. I mean, I look at their website, and it's the website's not going to generate any business unless they know who they are, because there's thin content. There's not even a picture of them, that type of thing. And it's been expressed to me that this person doesn't really want to be a solo, wants to fall into an established firm, wants somebody else to take away all the headaches of running a firm. And so I'm thinking to myself, for the first time, maybe I should be looking to somebody who's got 4.5 years of experience and knows how much work goes into making the phone rings and all the administrative stuff, may appreciate a little more than a first year. What are your thoughts on making that move at this point?
Look, that's in one sense ideal. If they're there, the question is, and it goes down to the Woody Allen Groucho Marx, why would you want to ever be a member of a club that would have you as a member? So, look, yes, that's awesome. Is there a reason they couldn't make it as a solo? Well, look, I would say that in this market, making it as a solo and criminal coming out in this market, really, really tough. So it's not a crazy thing for them to want to make a leap to you. And if you incentivize them right, I love it. Like, to me, that is the better option than killing yourself to train and do all the things you do. The great thing is you have those systems in place, so it's less training than others, but it's still a substantial amount of sweat equity of your part. If you really want to step away, you need to have people who are playing, I think, at a higher level than those first years, because it's just too much liability and too much sweat equity in the training.
Right. I mean, and one of the reasons why I always would bring in newbies rather than get established people is that, I want my cases worked a certain way, and I want to make sure that contact is done with the client in a certain way. And, it's been a struggle in the past when I had people who had some level of experience. They would be like, no, I don't do it that way. And I feel like saying, well, look, here it's J way or no way.
The J way is analogous in the business world to the Cravath way. I was a clerk there before law school, right? Biggest, baddest corporate firm. They historically, I think it's changed, but historically only hired people on associate track out of law school. Summer associates are right out of law school, and would train them in the Cravath way. You format a document this way. Everything is done with their training, and that was the Ruane version in the corporate world. I get it. It's just, it means that I think there's that risk factor, and they would bring 80 people into an incoming first-year class where maybe one would make partner 8 years later and everybody else is gone. So, they're okay with that attrition because they just want that one diamond in the rough that's going to be their, powerhouse that becomes part of their family, very dysfunctional family maybe. But the idea is that they have that type of numbers. We don't want to play that game. I don't want that type of turnover. I want to have people come and stay.
Yeah, I definitely don't want. So one of the things that I'm thinking about doing, and I actually posted this in my Facebook systems group, looking to see who's ever doing this, is we're actually going to bring one of our lawyers back who has gone onto the mommy track and then decided to come. But now it's time. All the kids are in school. Wants to work a little in an auditor role. So that they could oversee, make sure billables are in, making sure, and just doing the check-ins. Because quite frankly, I like people, but I am not a people person. Well, I'm an introvert, and if anybody knows what an introvert is, I get exhausted by talking to people. Like, I'll get off this show with Seth right now. I'll need, an hour or a half hour just to myself, just to sort of recharge my batteries. Seth is the opposite. If you've ever met him, he gets jazzed by hanging out and talking to people, and it gives him energy. I get drained, he gets jazzed. That's just the way it works. So if yeah. But the thing is, the idea of me spending, every Monday checking in with all of my people is so just, it's just this huge task in front of me. I've decided that I'm going to hire to bring that in. And so
great ideas, but and part of my head starts to explode. Because in a perfect world, we would have a client success coordinator, we'd have a review person, we'd have an auditor for the files, we'd have a full-time videographer on staff. And you start to build this world, and next thing you know, you're like sitting there like, who the hell? Now, you could do it, in the fully contractor piece where nobody is full-time, but then you're constantly moving parts, who works, doesn't, who's auditing the auditor. Like it's like better than not. I'm just saying it is a complicated thing. Part of my frustration is I'd like to get some of these people in, but then the question is your admin team in place, and are they constantly trying to, we had a bunch of turnover, let's say in intake. So we're like during the Great Resignation, that was the part that was most hit by our firm. So now we're bringing in, a half dozen new intake people, shifting many to overseas, hoping that half dozen turns into 4 legit stays. That is, that takes away from the time for me of bringing in each of these other pieces I just mentioned. You talked about each of those different areas over time. I'd love to have them all, but I feel like I'm in this constant whack-a-mole game where the mission critical, not that those aren't mission critical, but I look at the ones that are actually the billing units or intake units. To me, those come first. How do you get both done? Not letting one of the main things. You only have so many priorities as far as developing, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's funny. Today, I think we're obviously working from the office. I know you're in the office too. Today, actually, our entire office is here. It's amazing. We haven't been together since March of 2020. I've got, and I've got my new video person is here with our director of marketing, and they've got one of the partners out there, and they're crushing. They have 100 1-minute videos that they're shooting today, getting that done. It's amazing to see like a busy office. I have two associates, one of them who's leaving is like, I've never seen it this busy. I'm used to being here alone. So I think we're starting to, we've turned that corner. I'm getting my second, my booster shot and my flu shot later today. So I'm looking forward to that. But I think we're getting to the point where we are turning this corner. I think one of the challenges, and this is something that you and I both did, we sort of, started our firms from nothing, right? I mean, it's just cell phones and hustle. Law is one of those businesses where you really can sort of just use your brain and a pen and a cell phone and start the hustle. Nobody would start a restaurant or any other business the way we start out undercapitalized, and I think that's one of the things that we need to talk about as to grow your firm here, because that's what we're all about, is that sometimes you need to take a back seat and actually hire more people, even if you don't see the revenue day one from them, because you can't be the chef and the hostess and the waiter and the dishwasher as the lawyer. You need to sort of hire the people for the right roles, and then you can start adding things like the videographer, like you and I have talked about, and stuff like that. What's your thought about capitalization? When is it right to take a line of credit and bring in staff that you're going to need to free you up to do the stuff that's actually high paying?
I think it's a tough question, right? In the business world, that's how you do things. But
we're businesses.
Understood, but we're law firms, and it's, granted Arizona is trying to dismantle that, but for the moment it's there. So I think you have to be very cautious. There's some very high, expensive money out there that people leverage extremely well in the PI space, right? History is written by the victors. There's a long gestation period. You can really leverage things in the PI space and the mass tort space with other people's money. I just took a coffee with somebody, not in the fee for service space, who took a lot of money in order to scale something, and their systems were not J. Wayne systems, and it, for a bunch of reasons, didn't work. And I think you just got to be careful. There are a lot of failed businesses, like restaurants, right? 80% or something fail in the first year. There are crazy stats out there on these things. And I feel like most of our audience are pretty cautious. Once in a while, you see some of the family money or money from another piece of their career. But even people that have, it seems that most people in our micro world don't do that. They may have a small line of credit to do things, but I'm very cautious about putting too much out there, because you can go upside down pretty quickly. It's hard enough keeping cash flow out of it.
So I got a question for you. I'm going to get your input on something. I've already talked to Ryan McKean on it. You know, I don't do any PI in house. All my PI goes to Ryan, and we've got a couple of cases that I've sent to him, and he says, some of these things, are going to settle in 2022. He's like, we're at the point now, we're starting to get trial dates and stuff that we thought would settle, a year ago, it got delayed and that type of thing. And back of the napkin, back of the envelope type of stuff, he's able to say, okay, I think I'm going to be able to deliver you X amount of dollars next year. So if that's the case, do you say, I've got this credit line that I'm not tapping at all, and I've got cushion in addition to that, is now the time to hire and to take on some more expenses, knowing that 6 months, 9 months from now, I'm going to have a windfall that can easily pay that stuff off? Or do you wait and say, I'm going to wait another year till I have cash in hand? What's your opinion on something like that? Because I want to get, I want to grow, right?
Right. The question is, how far do you stretch?
Right. So say I'm going to invest, 10% of what I'm expecting to recover next year.
Until something happens with the law, the stuff gets pushed out, or the number, plenty of things can happen. But I always look at it that we are relatively conservative by nature, and that you are as well. So if you say, hey, what are your big expenses? You already got the videographer. What are you going to get? Like your auditor? Like this is an extra X dollars. Like if you're saying to me, yeah, you know what? I'm thinking about spending an extra $12,000 a month. It's not going to make or break you. And God forbid the stuff doesn't come in and everything else. Who cares? If you're saying, you know what, I'm going to go and buy a new building based on this money coming in. I'm going to put down $700,000 that I don't really have sitting in the bank. And if it doesn't happen, I'd be squeezed. That's very different. But the thing that my law partner, who's really the law backbone, but has some really good business insights, if you look at stuff by the quarter, by the month, quarter, 6 months, the numbers are a lot less scary. Now, look, it's like anything else. Whenever you do anything, you put in a Google subscription and it's free for the first month and just start setting your credit card. Same thing. It's like you made pro forma for 6 months and then the money still is required 7, 8, 9. It keeps going. But if you're saying, hey, I think there's some pretty good chance of that money coming in, we're sort of coming out of COVID where numbers are up. There's no reason to think that we're being slowed down. Why not spend an extra X amount per month? Let's say, God forbid, nothing happens. You're not screwed. And if it's revenue producing things, it's only going to make you stronger in the long run. That's the piece, right? You're not saying, hey, I'm going to go buy a Suburban because I have cash to burn before it's in. Everything you're doing, that videographer is going to make you some X percentage on what you're paying them. The auditor is going to make you some percentage by finding you that bad employee you need to get out or getting more out of. So each of these things, if done right, should have a positive impact. And as you get bigger, it's harder to see each of those. But, the answer being, and you see some windfalls coming that aren't like, hey, this is 5 years off. But if you have a couple of them and one of them hits, you'll be fine.
Cool. All right, so hold on right now, folks. What we're going to do is we're going to take a short break. You'll hear from our sponsors, and when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about firm administrators with you, Seth, and the role that they should play, as well as office space, because I think these are all things that I got to consider as we grow. So figure today's a therapy session with Jay Ruane, brought to you by my therapist, Seth Price. Folks, hang on. We'll be right back with more Maximum Growth Live. Hi, I'm Jay Ruane, one of the founders of FirmFlex and a practicing attorney for over 20 years. Anyone who knows me knows how my firm runs on the systems we create, and it has allowed us to flourish, even in tough times. I spent years and hundreds of thousands of dollars until I finally figured out a way to engage my audience and drive top-of-mind awareness with social media. And what did I do once I figured it all out? I built a system for it, and now you can put that system to work for you. You see, we took the hard part, creating the content and finding the images, and made it foolproof. Every day you will have curated social media topics to post designed to make your firm constantly remind your audience about your firm, what you do, and how you can help. And the best part? You don't even need to hire a dedicated social media person to do this for you. In fact, you don't even need to hire anyone new. We designed the system to make it easy for you to delegate to your receptionist, assistant, or paralegal and have them execute solid social media for you in just 5 minutes a day.
It's like having a content writer, researcher, and graphics designer at a fraction of the price it would cost to hire in-house. Sign up today for the Social Super System and start building your brand where your clients already are, on social media.
In this world today, if you want to grow your business, you want to grow your firm, you want to take on more cases and make a bigger impact, you have to have a digital blueprint. Statistically, throughout the time that we've been working with Blue Shark Digital, our law firm, the Atlanta Divorce Law Group, grew over 1,400%. They truly understand where we're headed and how we want to get there. I have a team in Blue Shark Digital that I feel like has my back.
And we're back here on Maximum Growth Live. And, Seth, I want to talk to you a little bit about the role of the firm administrator, because I know you've been struggling to fill that role. You had some turnover in it after having a solid one for years. And I am seeing myself that I finally have somebody in that slot. And after struggling for years, not having somebody in that slot, it's really sort of taken a lot of work off of my shoulders. We onboarded a bunch of overseas talent. We're actually, one of the things that we talked about in the last segment was spending some money. I want to bring in a whole bunch of overseas talent and spend the money to hire them and train them, not knowing if I'm going to need them in the new year. But I figure I've got the money now, and if things turn around, maybe with my new SEO play that I'm going to talk about in a future show, maybe by then I'm going to need them. And so I figure it's better to invest the $12, $15, $20,000 in staffing up and training. And if I lose it, it's better to take that risk. But anyway, so let's talk a little bit about the firm administrator position, because I think that's something that a lot of lawyers say, well, it's not something that I necessarily need to do and have somebody full-time in this role. But talk about the impact on your ability to scale with your firm administrator.
Well, and to be fair, I was late to the game. I didn't bring it in as soon as we should have. And look, I took on that role. It was sort of sweat equity.
Yeah.
We started with defective HR people and slowly grew somebody. And look, I'm at the position right now where the turnover piece. We talked at Max LawCon, my conversation with Tyson, about the essential people. And as you get larger, part of the problem is it's harder just to replace. Now, to be fair, I did replace and then had Me Too issues that I had to deal with. So to me, the best inoculation is a deep bench. Two things on that. Right now, we're thinner because of Great Resignation. And second, as we push stuff overseas, there's less of a domestic bench potentially there for some of these more senior roles. Thankfully, we have an offer out and accepted for somebody starting, but it's almost like, imagine that, your spouse was taking a sabbatical and you needed somebody to come in and help you run the house and raise kids together. And you could interview somebody all you want and they can check the boxes, but when they sit inside your house, how is that going to be? And so to me, you can interview, but it is, people are people. We all have oddities and quirks, and we know that we're dealing with somebody who has certain areas that we may not be simpatico on, but lots that we do. And that's it's scary and it's risk. Part of what I sort of love talking to you about, and that part of the things that's allowed this period to be less scary, is that as we've added, it turns out to be from overseas, different, I'll call them widgets, but different pieces that are being taken care of without the drama that I had domestically, that those positions, the fact there's an HR person the other day who I didn't even really know very well, who's doing reviews. And the fact is they have to happen, people need to have them. I was on one that was a direct report to me. The fact there was an administrative person there to keep the train running, even when the person who should be there was not. And we have a placeholder, an interim person, which comes with other issues, because I took somebody in charge of CMP and did that, and they're frankly breaking. There's too much to do. So interim is good, but the Band-Aid has costs. I'll give you a very visible one. Our PI team was supposed to have a video day. I wish I had the full-time videographer. It hasn't happened yet, but we were going to bring our rock star video guy in. He does really nice work. You've always noticed the videos on our website are great, and everybody shows up in their suits that day, and yet there was a miscommunication, which a word I hate, and there was no videographer. I can't yell at a guy doing two jobs at the same time he dropped the ball. So, like, does it cost us anything? No, it's a morale thing. It's a frustration thing. It just makes you look shitty as a firm. But those are the things that slip between the cracks. I'm trying to punt as much as possible, leverage some of our intermediate admin staff, and pushing everything to them that we can. But it's, again, more sweat equity on me to make sure it happens. And when it doesn't, I'm actually dealing with a catering menu for our office party tomorrow night, trying to get an outdoor office party in before it's freezing. It should be taken care of fully by staff. And yet, when these holes break, as entrepreneurs, we're in there plugging those holes.
Yeah, I think that's sort of our nature as the business owner to want to jump in. One of the things that I've decided to do, starting in 2022, is we're actually taking an overseas assistant and assigning them to pods of 3 lawyers as a personal assistant. So you need your doctor's appointments coordinated. You need to, you want to send flowers to your spouse. You need to send a note card to somebody who lost a family member. Basically, we're gonna bring on this overseas talent to do all of those things that otherwise take up the time. And it's just, it's one of these.
But I'm going to tell you, look, I've seen that, right? At Blue Shark, we have some people that are supposed to help with travel planning. It's certain things. How much faster is dry cleaning? Got to physically be there, right? Assuming that you're not delivering it, right? But that if you have systems set up personally, I'm not saying a personal assistant isn't great, but what the personal assistant can do in the one-off assignments, the reason they work so well for you or me, Blue Shark or Price Benowitz, is that there's systems they follow. The moment it's a one-off, you're in uncharted territory for anybody, particularly somebody without the same cultural norms. So we just got to Vegas, 4 of us, and I spent 45 minutes at 10 o'clock at night checking into the Bellagio because they had screwed. Again, it's nuanced stuff. It's like, hey, we used a third-party service, and that third-party service didn't get the names over to the hotel. But the stuff, like, unless it's stuff I, angrily at 10 o'clock said from now on to have, here's your itinerary. Here is something that's over-systematizing and showing everything that's there, so when it's wrong, you have something to go to. But the idea that you're going to do one-off and send flowers, by the time the person figures out where to do it, what the sensibility is, and all those different things, I have found that it is great to say, but that leveraging the one-off has been much, much harder than when you say, we're doing a proposal or a retainer, and they know exactly what to do.
Right.
Then it can be complicated.
Yeah, so we've gone so far as that, for the bereavement issues, we categorize clients as tier A, B, or C, referral sources as A, B, or C, and so it's, hey, send a tier B flowers to this person, tier C gift to this person, and the VAs can just run with it because they know what there is. So let me ask you this then: would you recommend not only hiring a firm administrator, but then also hiring an assistant firm administrator so that you have a junior person who's there in case they need it? And then, or are you spending money that you don't need to spend?
But look, yes, that's the gazillion-dollar question, though. Yes, I recommend it, but it's margin. So it depends on the scale of your firm. So if I'm talking to a buddy with a criminal practice in Boca, no, I'd love them to have it, but I don't think it's viable. But let's say you do have one firm administrator, you're not going to have a bench, right? You shouldn't at this point, right? So you'd love to. Maybe it's your receptionist that's going to someday be the firm administrator, maybe. But what I have found, and I'm doing this for myself, because is that it's hard enough to find one decent firm administrator. Yes, I'd love to groom somebody from the administrative world up. Now, my issue before was the person I was grooming was being sort of harassed by the person above them. So again, don't take lessons from me. But the idea being that what I am looking at is, okay, we're going to have a firm administrator. And rather than, every consultant tells me you need an HR full-time person, right, for the size firm we are. And they're probably right. But what I've seen is this person from overseas has done a remarkable job. Again, I don't say this lightly because I'm telling you, we're not getting remarkable results from all. He's not getting $5 an hour anymore. He's probably getting $9 or $10 an hour. But he is able to solve a problem have a portfolio of work with some stability, right? Again, and because of all the systems that are now in place, much more stable than it is, and that my current thinking is a overseas operations person, all of this stuff to stabilize the person in that role, so that role, not that it's not essential, but that it's coordinating other pieces, and no one piece can break you. So even if the senior person breaks, all the other trains are running. And yes, you need an expediter, you need that engineer, and I'm not saying we're going without that, but that if you can make sure that each of the different systems are there, then you have a fighting chance when somebody leaves of everything not falling around it. Yes, you could create a bench, but to have a bench for the sake of a bench doesn't make sense. If you could flex your intake person into the firm administrator backup role, maybe, and that's what happened with my longstanding one, but what I'm seeing right now is that the personality makeup and the skill set of the person who's been my intake person, he is breaking. And frankly, if I will be hopeful that we get to this point in 2 weeks where a new firm administrator is on, it's going to take them 2 to 6 weeks to become acclimated, that it is, it works unless it doesn't work. I'd love to be able to flex and pivot, but you also can lose somebody if you push them too far outside their comfort zone.
Yeah, it's a lot to grow your firm. I mean, there's a million considerations you have to make. There's a million decisions you have to make on a daily basis, and it can be exhausting. And the most important thing for everybody in the audience, we're going through it too. I mean, I know a lot of people approach you at Max LawCon. They'll approach me and they'll say, I'm just starting out. I hung a shingle. I've got I've got a paralegal and one associate, and that type of thing. And it's like the sort of Damocles, right? It's hanging over our heads just as much as it's hanging over yours. And so we're just we're dealing with just bigger problems, but we have problems nonetheless. And what we're trying to do is trying to talk about our problems so that when you get to that level and that problem arises, you're not going through it alone, because you have a resource like us to say, I can go back and listen to those episodes, or I can get on the phone and I can call these guys and say, how would you handle that situation? Because I know Seth and I are always willing to take a call. And obviously we want to create a community feeling, especially in Maximum Lawyer and that type of thing. There's a lot out there that people can rely on what others have gone through. And that's really what Max Growth Live is really all about. And it's a wonderful community that we've built.
One of the things we talked about a long time ago, I think during COVID, but it's worth repeating it with a lot of new listeners, is that I think the best thing to do is to have an org chart of where you want to be. Because we're talking about all these different positions, and you can't afford them all right now. Literally, the frustrating part, I'm listening, I'm like, hey, I got $450,000 in gross revenue. You can't be doing all these things, but you can know where you want to get to. And you can sort of learn, hey, if I were in hindsight, the thing that I was last to the table on was a firm administrator. You keep talking about where those leaps are. And the question is, if you're in a billable hour type situation and you can bill an extra 500 hours a year because you're a firm administrator, that becomes chump change. Not chump change, but a good ROI. Versus other situations and figuring it out. Investing smartly. But again, whenever you see those things on Max Law where somebody says, hey, what's the greatest thing you did to grow your firm? To me, it's cases. If you don't have the cases, all of this is academic. Now you can have less cases and just get really good margins. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're looking to scale, and we are on Max Growth Live, the idea is that I think that you look at what will you need making small investments in the future, not so much that it straps you with cash to live, but enough that you're not being so profitable that you're sort of curtailing your ability to grow in the future.
And that's what we're all about here, folks, at Maximum Growth Live. So I want to thank you for being with us today. Seth, we cover a lot in these episodes, and certainly we want people to discuss it. So if you have any comments, wherever you're watching this or you're listening, please leave us some messages down below. We read them all. We always want to know what's going on. If you're watching the show live, be sure to make a comment there, because we can't really respond to the comments in live because we're on camera, but we certainly will follow up and give you responses if we see it. We always always see some friends who always say hi when we're live on their screens, and we love seeing that. So for now, that's going to end it for this week. But if you want to keep up with Seth, always be sure to tune into his SEO Insider Show. It's available on YouTube. I just rewatched You with Rand. That was posted recently, and that was a phenomenal episode. I remember seeing him at SMX East back in 2018, I think. God, it seems like forever ago. It was right when he had left and was doing his own thing, and he was talking about how Google really had become the competitor for most businesses because Google was trying to give out information. And I'm sure that there's going to come a day where Google people are going to be getting legal responses from Google with the asterisk that this doesn't count as legal advice. But, people come into their offices with scores and scores of research that they've gotten off of random websites. Eventually, Google's going to be giving you the answer. So we're going to have to deal with them someday, but not today.
Well, maybe they'll figure out how to give answers to how to grow your law firm, and you and I can just take the hour off and hang out and drink. So
that sounds like a plan to me. Two guys who don't really drink that much, but that'll be fun stuff. Next time I catch you at a conference, Seth, I'm going to make you have a drink with me. We'll see how that goes. But if you want to catch up with me, you can find me in my Systemizing Your Law Firm for Growth Facebook group. Please join us. I post systems there every week that you can just plug and play right into whatever repository you do. Seth's people actually at Blue Shark are going to be doing a walkthrough of Trainual, which is something that you guys use, right? So we've got your Trainual. My brother's doing.
Yeah, we also used it at Price Benowitz.
Oh, fantastic!
As I mentioned, we have this entire intake group coming through because of domestic turnover and building out the international team. And this is so every new employee gets up to a week if there's time, or if there's a start date. Let's say November 1st, we're going to have a training class start. But for us, I'm trying to get multiples. It's been a long road. Understanding you may not have that in junior, but as you get multiple hires, or you say, you know what, I just need one, but I'm going to hire 3 and see who makes it through training, because we give them a week to do 8 hours of training, paid. So they have a week to watch 8 hours, and there's a quiz at the end of it. Not difficult, but that's one cut. Second is we do our training. Second cut. And the third is somebody gets, let's say, live on the phones in CMT, client management team, intake. And then there's a third cut, can you actually do the job in real time? And that usually gets us, 60 cents on the dollar, by the time it goes from full hires down. And I'm fine with that. That's the goal. But I think that, taking away and the more that we can leverage, I wish there was more Trainual, but 8 hours of Trainual is not terrible, given that it allows us to weed out the first bunch.
I love it. So what we're going to post is actually a walkthrough on how they use it. My brother has his wiki that he's going to do a video for. I'm going to get Ryan McKean to talk us through Tetra. So we're going to have a lot of those things going on. And we're going to talk more about those options here on future shows. And then I don't want to miss this opportunity to talk about how my firm is actually starting to talk to Blue Shark about taking on SEO, something that I have not done ever. Well, that's not true. We've talked to Blue Shark. We've gotten advice from Blue Shark. I've known Brenton for almost as long as he's been with you. And I've seen him grow from a pup right out of college to this monster that he is now. But so I'm Blue Shark adjacent, involved in the family. But I'm getting circumcised soon, is what I'm saying. Seth, you're going to be my moil and circumcise me soon.
I was a different analogy. I think we've been your shrink. Whether or not you take the advice or the perspective we give you is another story. And so I'm excited because I feel like it's been, look, we always joke, I'm antisocial, you're anti-SEO, but I think we're going to find that you've been anti-SEO. And that the great part, this is what I love about it, is that when I see this for myself, if I wake up in the morning, I can only fall generally in my markets. When I look at what opportunities you have with your authority and the fact that you've played majority social game and frankly disregarded a lot of what we talked about on SEO, I'm really, really excited to see what's possible for you.
Yeah, it should be fun. Should be interesting. So we'll see what that's going to come in weeks to come. But for now, I'm going to sign off. Seth, great spending some time with you. Everybody, please check us out here on Max Growth Live. You can watch us every Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific, live in the Facebook groups that you're watching us in right now. But if you want to catch up with us, you can find us syndicated on the Maximum Lawyer podcast, as well as our own standalone podcast edition called Max Growth Live, wherever podcasts are available. For now, he is Seth Price. I I am Jay Ruane. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you next week. Have a great Halloween with your kitties, and bye for now.